They thought Earth was finished. Shattered. Hollowed out. A memory of a world once alive. A dead blue rock floating in the black, stripped of its people, its armies, its soul. And maybe that was true. Maybe Earth had died when the last orbital burned. Maybe humanity's song had ended the moment the arc systems collapsed. But out there, in the cold stretch of Sector 9, something moved through the ruins. And it was angry. When the Galactic Council received the first report, they laughed. Some flickering signals from a derelict, they scoffed. Ghost code, sensor ghosts, maybe a lost droid picking up static. But then a listening post vanished, just blinked off the star map. Gone, like a candle snuffed out in a void. That got their attention. Surveillance drones were dispatched. Not one returned. The last transmission was nothing but static, and then a voice. Human. Speaking English. You took everything. Now we take it back. The file was reviewed 100 times in 10 hours. Experts ran voice simulations, language scans, threat assessments. They all came back with the same response: impossible. There were no humans left. Earth's colonies were glassed. The orbital fleets were vaporized. The last battalions had fallen holding Europa's trench lines nearly 2 decades ago. That was history. That was done. But then it happened again. 2 ships patrolling the Oort threshold were reduced to debris. Precision strikes. No energy signature. No life forms detected. And yet the holes were torn with kinetic force, a weaponized railstorm, far beyond what any surviving tech should be capable of. Whoever it was had weapons that shouldn't exist. And worse, they were surgical. They were precise. Methodical. Predators with a plan. The Council called an emergency assembly. Admiral Krell of the Varkari fleet leaned forward, mandibles twitching with irritation. It is likely a rogue AI, he hissed. Remnants of Earth's defunct war networks. It should be terminated like the virus it is. Ambassador Yivak of the Thalans stood slowly. I've seen this before, she whispered. During the siege of Delos, when the Terrans were losing. They did not surrender. They did not retreat. They vanished. Into the rocks, the ice, the shadows. They became ghosts. Demons. And they waited. The room fell into silence. There was one truth they never grasped: humans don't surrender. Not really. When Earth fell, the world thought the story ended. But stories don't end until the last page is turned. And humanity had 1 page left. Aboard the derelict carrier Resolute, orbiting the graveyard moon of Virex, a signal repeated every 42 minutes. It wasn't a distress call. It was a warning. Short, sharp, clear. We remain. Undone. Unyielding. No name. No code. Just that. And the strange thing? It wasn't bouncing off satellites. It was fired from deep underground, beneath kilometers of irradiated rock. There was life, silent, deliberate, and awakening with intent. And it had purpose. Sergeant Thorne was a legend, or a ghost, depending on who you asked. One of the last surviving members of Earth's 9th Planetary Shock Division. A man who once held a city alone for 5 days with nothing but a rifle, his armor, and a half-dead recon bot. He was supposed to have died during the retaliation scourge. But like many things about Earth's final days, that record turned out to be incomplete. They found him when the Varkari sent a stealth team to investigate the source of the message. 12 of their best. What came back was a single fractured log from the commander's suit. They're not dead. They've changed. That was all. The council grew restless. Fear began to stir beneath their political bravado. Something was wrong. Not just tactically, existentially. The humans weren't just surviving. They were adapting. Evolving. Turning ruin into a weapon. And then came the Malthus strike. The dreadnought Crucible of Order, the largest vessel in the sector, was sent to neutralize the threat. No diplomacy. No warning. Just overwhelming force. 17,000 crew. Full planetary-scale ordnance. It never fired a shot. The recording from its final moments showed blurry footage. Shadows moving in impossible ways. Boarding parties torn apart. Automated turrets firing into empty halls. And a voice, calm, steady, human. You shouldn't have come. Then silence. The ship was never found. After that, the whispers started. A myth began to rise across the sectors. A name passed from ship to ship, from soldier to soldier. The Last Battalion. Said to be human remnants, war-hardened survivors of Earth's final defense line. They were spoken of like wraiths, appearing in the wreckage of long-dead colonies, scavenging tech no one else dared touch, building something beneath the council's nose. No one knew how many there were. A dozen? 100? All they knew was this: if you crossed into the wrong zone and you saw the symbol, an old Terran eagle, blackened and cracked, turn around. Because once they found you, you weren't coming back. Some refused to believe it. Until Sector Command Base 41 went dark for 9 full hours. When recon finally made it inside, they found the place stripped clean. No bodies. No damage. Just a single phrase scorched into the metal wall, etched with heat and fury. You started this. By now, it wasn't about Earth. It wasn't about politics or territory. It was about fear. Real, primal fear. Because the galaxy had forgotten what humans were capable of when they had nothing left to lose. And now they were remembering. One by one, the smart species began to withdraw from the edges of the human dead zones. Patrols ceased. Trade routes shifted. Uncharted space got bigger, darker, less explored. And still, the signals kept coming. Every 42 minutes. We remain. Undone. Unyielding. So the council did what bureaucrats always do when scared: they tried to bury it. Declare all incidents classified. Ban travel to Earth-adjacent sectors. Threaten death to any who shared recordings or spoke the name. But it was too late. Because out there, in the broken bones of a fallen world, Earth's Last Battalion wasn't hiding anymore. They were preparing. And this time, they weren't playing defense. The strike came without warning. At 0300 Galactic Standard, a Council research facility hidden beneath the crust of Rel Lion 4 was obliterated in under 4 minutes. Not attacked, asterisk erased star. No alarms, no distress calls, just a sudden void where a critical outpost once existed. The only clue was a satellite feed glitch, 3 silhouettes stepping into the frame before the data cut out. 3 figures. Human-sized. Moving with crisp, tactical precision, like they'd done this 100 times before. Command scrambled. Defense fleets realigned. Strategic analysts panicked quietly behind reinforced glass. But the public never heard a word. Officially, the incident was a natural core rupture. Unofficially, top brass across 6 systems had just been given a single directive: do not engage if the insignia appears. It wasn't a bluff. Not anymore. Because those humans? They weren't just survivors. They were soldiers who'd lived through the death of Earth. and that kind of fire doesn't go out. It calcifies. It shapes you. Turns flesh into armor and fear into fuel. These weren't stragglers. They were forged. The Last Battalion had a leader now. Not a name anyone outside their shadowy ranks knew. But whispers called him the Warden. Ex-intelligence. Ex-spec ops. Said to have kept prisoners and secrets deeper than data cores, silent, unseen, and always watching. A man so buried in black ops he might have been erased twice over. What mattered wasn't his past. It was what he'd done since. Coordinated strikes. Silent assaults. Evac denial zones. Anytime the Council thought they were a step ahead, he was already 3 deeper. The Warden had a doctrine: make the enemy question the dark. Ships started reporting strange malfunctions near dead sectors. Nav drift. Sudden AI lockouts. Entire crew manifests blanked from station memory banks. Then the outposts started listening. Drones caught strange audio signatures playing on loop across old Terran military bands. Did you really think it was over? The message varied, but the tone never did. Cold. Measured. Unmistakably human. Out of desperation, the Council authorized a manhunt. 50 elite contractors, hired from the Veil Syndicate. Killers for profit, veterans from extermination campaigns. They tracked a heat trail near the ruins of the Callisto mining belts and went in with full armor and planet killers. None returned. Just one drone limped back with footage of static and a sigil carved into an asteroid wall, a battered Terran Eagle, fractured through the middle, wings flared like a warning. We remember everything. After that, paranoia spread like wildfire. Captains refused orders. Crews demanded reassignment. Recruitment fell to historic lows. Propaganda couldn't keep up. How do you lie about a ghost that keeps making corpses? And still, no declaration came from the battalion. No list of demands. No manifesto. Just silence and fire. Until one day, an encrypted Council channel received a direct transmission. The encryption was Council only. Unbreakable. Supposedly. And yet, there it was. Meet at Earth's cradle. Alone. You owe us that much. The Council hesitated. Then caved. They sent a single envoy, a half-retired diplomat named Orlan Venn, accompanied only by a small AI drone. He arrived at Earth's orbit 2 weeks later, hovering above the shattered crust of humanity's former home. And waited. Then she appeared. She wasn't in a ship. She was on one, a living human, armored, standing upright on the hull of a stealth frigate, sleek, black, jagged like a predator in the void, that blinked into visibility only when she willed it. Her voice carried through the vacuum as if space itself dared not disobey her orders. You remember us now? Venn stammered. He was prepared for threats. Not this. Not the raw presence. Not the weight of every buried secret staring back at him through a visor etched with the past. I was told you were extinct. Her reply was instant. We were. Then you made us something else. She stepped forward. Just one step. But it felt like a planet moved. You took our sky, our cities, our children. You thought we'd break. We didn't. We bent, then became blades. You took Earth. And now Earth takes back. She didn't wait for a reply. The transmission ended. The stealth frigate vanished. And with it, humanity's final warning. In the weeks that followed, 6 Council installations fell. Not to war, but to desertion. Troops defected. Officers turned. Some left their posts and simply walked into the dark, hoping to find the ghosts that now hunted the stars. They weren't chasing myths anymore. They were chasing something worse. Hope. Because the Last Battalion had become more than a resistance. They were a reckoning. Not just for the crimes committed during Earth's fall, but for every quiet betrayal, every system that turned its back, every power that watched humanity burn and said, "Not our problem." And they were not finished. Because even now, beneath the cratered remains of Earth's surface, something else stirred. Something deeper than vengeance. A machine. A program. A voice that spoke only once every 42 minutes, each time with a new line. We adapt. We endure. We ascend. And the galaxy finally began to understand. This wasn't about one last battle, it was about a truth no empire wanted to face. This was about the last species you should ever corner. The ones who walk through extinction. And come back stronger. They called it the Black Drift. A stretch of lawless space where even pirates refused to linger. It was too quiet, too empty, as if the stars themselves didn't want to be seen watching. But the Last Battalion was there. Or at least, that's what the latest ghost reports claimed. No one had proof, only whispers, fragments of footage, and shattered remains of ships that went looking and never came back. Then a cargo hauler stumbled out of the void. Emergency lights flickering, its hull pitted with railgun scars. The crew had vanished. No distress call, no damage to life support. One thing remained, scrawled across the command deck in black ash like a final verdict. We gave you a chance. The Council's panic boiled over. Special forces were deployed with full authorization to eliminate anything human in the drift. Dozens of ships moved in. None returned. What few fragments floated back carried nothing but confusion. Logs corrupted. AI systems locked. Hulls pierced with impossible angles, like the shots had come from inside. Inside sealed vessels. That's when the Council stopped sending soldiers. They started sending machines. The first drone fleet was built for extermination, fast, unthinking, absolute. A swarm of metal, programmed to burn anything that moved. It reached the drift, entered the coordinates, and disappeared. All of it. Gone. Sensors flatlined. No wreckage, no beacon. Just silence. Again. But 6 days later, one of the drones reappeared. Except it wasn't flying. It was nailed, literally nailed, to the outer hull of a Council battleship orbiting a distant colony. Driven through with Terran steel, the drone dangled like a message written in metal and defiance. The colony lost 20% of its population in the panic that followed. In secret, the Council debated fallback protocols. Whole sectors were being considered for abandonment. Trade was collapsing. Border patrols now refused to enter certain regions without double hazard pay and pre-written obituaries. And all the while, across fringe space, people started lighting candles in darkened corners and whispering prayers to something they no longer feared, but hoped would hear them. Humanity. A name once feared. Now whispered with reverence. Because maybe, just maybe, if the Last Battalion was real, they weren't just fighting back. They were winning. A group of independent scouts got a partial transmission near the drift's edge. Only audio, corrupted. But one voice came through, steady and calm. Redemption doesn't ask. It takes. They didn't know if it was a message or a mantra. But it echoed. Played on repeat. Became legend. Back on Virex 9, an abandoned Council black site flickered to life after years of silence. Power surged. Doors unlocked. Systems rebooted one by one, but no one had accessed it. No signal sent, no code entered. The site had been offline since Earth's collapse. The surveillance feed showed a single human figure walking the halls. Alone. Unarmed. And smiling. The moment the video was seen, the council shut the system down, deleted the logs, and swore the text to silence. But you can't kill a ghost with red tape. Not when it walks like that. Not when it looks you in the eye and grins. The battalion was moving. They weren't scattered anymore. They had structure. Precision. The strikes were closer now, targeted. They weren't after ships or tech. Their targets were different. Sharper. More personal. They were taking people. Scientists. Engineers. Former soldiers. Anyone who had once worked with Terran systems. They'd vanish from colonies without a trace. No broken locks. No forced entry. Just gone. Like the battalion reached through the dark and plucked them into myth. And those left behind? They started asking the same question. What if they're building something? No one had answers. The council tightened its grip. Imposed sanctions. Spread lies. Called it disinformation warfare. But fear isn't logical. And in silence, fear grows fast. In one intercepted civilian transmission, a trader said he saw a station, floating in the void like it had always been there. Massive, angular, glowing with soft blue light. He said it wasn't on any charts. Said it disappeared the moment he blinked. But not before he read the name carved into its outer hull. Soul's Mercy. And beneath it, one phrase. All debts will be paid. The council dismissed it as a hoax. But they didn't sleep that night. Because if it was real, and the battalion had built a base, then it was only a matter of time. Time before they weren't just targeting isolated ships or fringe worlds. Time before they came for the heart of the council itself. And if that happened, if Earth's ghosts truly had risen and forged a new kind of war, there wouldn't be treaties. No surrenders. No negotiations. There would be judgment. And the only sound left behind would be the silence of judgment fulfilled. It began with a whisper. A council signal relay near the core worlds picked up a faint, looping broadcast. It wasn't in any known galactic language. It was English. Old Earth Standard. The phrase repeated over and over. We're not coming for your planets. We're coming for your silence. That was the moment they knew the end had arrived, not with fire, not with screams, but with understanding. The Last Battalion had never wanted war. They wanted acknowledgement. They wanted someone to look into the abyss of history and see them. What they'd endured. What was taken. No more denials. No more lies. It wasn't long after that when Soul's Mercy emerged fully from the drift. Not in stealth. Not hidden. It pulsed in plain sight, massive, defiant, orbiting the broken skeleton of what was once Earth. For the first time in over a century, Terran systems lit up with life. Defense grids activated. Shields hummed. Transmissions echoed across 100 channels. And then, they opened the gates. Not to soldiers. Not to spies. To witnesses. Civilians from across the galaxy, diplomats, refugees, historians, journalists, were invited aboard. What they saw wasn't a war machine. It was a mausoleum, a museum, and a forge all wrapped into one. Rows of Terran banners preserved in vacuum-sealed corridors. Walls lined with names, billions of names. Cities etched into memory. Holograms of children who never grew up. Entire planets lost not to war, but to apathy. And among it all, humans stood. Not broken. Not burning with revenge. Just waiting. Watching. One of them spoke to a reporter from Varney's Prime. A woman with gray in her hair and scars on her throat. We waited for justice. No one came. So we became it. Word spread fast. The stories. The faces. The facts that had been buried under council propaganda for generations. And for once, no one could suppress them. Not even with force. Because for every soldier the council sent to silence the truth, 10 others laid down their arms and joined it. The battalion never raised a fleet. They never invaded. They didn't need to. They let the truth burn hotter than any weapon. Entire systems broke from the council willingly. Outposts declared neutrality. Academies replaced anti-Terran courses with lessons on survival, resilience, and history. And from the shadows, the battalion faded, bit by bit, until only their message remained. Never forget who you tried to erase. Years passed. The council fell, not in fire, but in silence. Disassembled by its own shame. Former worlds of the old order rebuilt under new banners. Some human. Some alien. Most, both. A fragile peace began to bloom. And in the center of that peace stood Earth, not as it was, but as it had become. A ruin rebuilt by memory. Its atmosphere breathable again. Forests crawling back. Oceans pulsing blue. On its surface stood a single monument, watched over by quiet Terran sentries. No guns. No shields. Just words. Etched into titanium. We are the last battalion. We don't want your fear. We want you to remember. Because in the end, it wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. The truth that every empire built on bones will eventually choke on them. That silence isn't peace. And that no matter how long you bury the fallen, the ground remembers. The last battalion didn't save humanity. They reminded the galaxy what it meant to be human. And that was enough. Some say they're gone now. That they dissolved into the stars after their mission was complete. Others say they still walk among the edges of space, watching, waiting, not to fight, but to warn. Because in every age, every cycle, every rising power, there is always someone who forgets. But now, the galaxy remembers. And that's why they still fear Earth's last battalion.